Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something literally everyone has dealt with at some point. Picture this. You're in the shower, just trying to wake up, and suddenly, bam, the water is pooling around your ankles. Or maybe you're doing the dishes, and the sink just backs up and stares at you. It's the worst, right? And in that moment of annoyance, almost all of us have the exact same instinct. We reach under the sink for that heavy plastic bottle of, well, false hope, the over-the-counter chemical drain cleaner. But today, we're going to look at the hidden long-term costs of that quick fix. Because while that immediate gratification is super tempting, the reality of what's happening inside your walls, well, it's a totally different story.
Look, it is a universally relatable urge to grab a liquid cleaner for an immediate, super satisfying fix. I totally get it. You pour it in, you wait a few minutes, maybe you hear a little bubbling, and then swoosh, the drain clears. It feels like a massive victory. But here is the critical question we really need to answer today to kick off our investigation. Why do these chemical drain cleaners actually backfire? I mean, if they're sold in literally every grocery store and hardware shop, how could they possibly be the wrong choice? Well, as we dig into the expert insights from Plumbing Pros, you're going to see that this quick fix is usually just an illusion, and it's one that completely sets you up for much bigger headaches down the road.
The immediate fix might feel satisfying, for sure, but the long-term outcomes are frequently so much worse. Plumbing experts are constantly warning us that repeated use of these chemical products doesn't just fail to solve the actual root of the problem, it literally escalates the damage. Relying on these liquids increases your odds of future, far more stubborn clogs. And as we'll see, it creates some seriously expensive hazards for both your property and your plumbing infrastructure. To really wrap our heads around why, we have to look at what you're actually fighting against when a sink backs up. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the complex breakdown of a real-world clog. When we picture a blockage, we usually just imagine one specific culprit, right? Like maybe a clump of hair or a rogue piece of food. But the reality? Oh, it's so much grosser. It's this impenetrable lasagna of grease, soap residue, food particles, hair, and even mineral scale. Over time, all these different elements combine into this thick, layered mass. And the fundamental problem with chemical drain products is that they're formulated with a specific chemistry designed for a very narrow kind of blockage. They literally cannot dissolve this entire, diverse, nasty network of buildup. And because these chemicals can't dissolve everything, you end up trapped in this highly deceptive vicious cycle. Let's walk through exactly how this happens. Step 1, you pour the chemical down the drain. Step 2, the chemical manages to burn a tiny, narrow little pathway through the weakest part of that clog, creating a partial clearing. The water starts flowing again, so you naturally think, hey, it worked. But step 3 is the trap. A gooey, partially melted, super sticky residue remains lining your pipes. And this residue, it acts like a giant magnet for new debris, which leads directly to step 4, the drain backs up again, and usually it happens way faster and is much worse than before. You see, you haven't cured the disease, you've really just temporarily masked the symptom. But you know, returning clogs are really just the beginning of the headache. Let's move on to section 1, hidden damage inside pipes. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between the two approaches. On one side, mechanical clearing physically targets the actual cause of the clog. On the other side, chemical cleaners violently attack your plumbing. Think about it. The chemistry required to eat through solid organic matter has to be highly aggressive. So repeated exposure to these chemicals actually corrodes metal pipes and fittings. It degrades certain plastic components. But most importantly, it severely stresses older plumbing joints and seals. Your entire plumbing system relies on those intact joints and gaskets to stay watertight. Once those chemicals eat away and weaken those seals, you aren't just dealing with a simple plunging job anymore. You are dealing with slow leaks or even massive structural failures that are going to cost exponentially more to fix. And it actually gets trickier. Pouring harsh chemicals into a pipe creates totally unpredictable reactions in real-world plumbing environments. Sometimes the chemical action doesn't dissolve the mass at all. Instead, it just barely loosens the debris from one section of the pipe and pushes it deeper into the system. So you're effectively just relocating the problem. But now, instead of the blockage being right near the drain where it's relatively easy to reach, it's been pushed deep down into the main lines of your house. And clearing that out requires major professional intervention. The stakes escalate way beyond property damage, too. Let's look at Section 2, Safety and Environmental Risks. The immediate risks to you, the person actually pouring the bottle, are no joke. We're talking improper ventilation, dangerous chemical splashes, and severe burns if this stuff contacts your skin or your eyes. But honestly, the most terrifying risk comes from mixing.
When a drain is stubbornly clogged, human nature totally tempts us to get frustrated and try a different brand of cleaner, or maybe just pour in some bleach. Please do not do this. Mixing chemical drain cleaners with other household products, especially acids, bleach, or ammonia, can produce highly toxic gases or even violent, explosive chemical reactions right there inside your sink. It is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And even if you follow the instructions absolutely perfectly and use them safely, there is still a massive downstream impact because every single drop of that harsh chemical has to go somewhere, right? Your drains connect to broader municipal wastewater systems, so frequent use of these highly corrosive, toxic liquids puts a heavy, completely unnecessary strain on the broader plumbing infrastructure. It really complicates the waste treatment processes that eventually clean our water. It's just a heavy toll on the environment, especially when compared to simple mechanical maintenance. Okay, so what is the alternative? Let's dive into this in Section 3, the long-lasting fix. Instead of defaulting to harsh chemicals, plumbing professionals universally recommend methods that actually target the root cause and prevent the clog from ever coming back. First up, physical clearing. Just use a simple plunger or a plumbing snake to mechanically pull the blockage out. It's straightforward and it works. If you're dealing with grease-related slowdowns, say in a kitchen sink, regular hot water flushes can absolutely do wonders. For the bathroom, routine cleaning practices are vital. In fact, a cheap $2 plastic hair strainer is quite literally the best return on investment you will ever make for your home. It stops the problem before it even starts. And finally, if you have repeated backups, especially across multiple fixtures, you really need to get a professional inspection. A pro can tell you if the issue is localized, like a clogged P-trap, or if it's a systemic issue, like a complex venting problem or a deep line obstruction that literally no liquid in a bottle could ever fix. Which brings us to our final thought. Chemical drain cleaners really often act as nothing more than a short-term patch for a long-term system. So you really have to stop and ask yourself, are short-term chemical patches really worth the risk of long-term, incredibly expensive plumbing bills? By prioritizing mechanical cleaning, straightforward preventative maintenance, and just calling in a professional when things get a little too tough, you are choosing the safer, significantly more durable path for your home. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Next time that sink slows down, do yourself a huge favor. Skip the bottle and grab the plunger.